All right, welcome back. Glad you are still with us. This is Good Morning Kenya. In case you're joining us, I'm Jane Wambui. As always, glad to have you with us. Remember, I will be going through what is happening on our socials. Check in using the hashtag Good Morning Kenya, tag at KBC Channel 1, at Jane Wambui, at Ray Manyara, at Doreen Arange, and we'll be getting to your feed in a bit. And just to appreciate William Mamburi always with us as we start the program. Always, anasema, always connecting us to the world, information about what is happening around us. Good morning from Watamu. Thank you so much for being with us. Tunakupenda pia. Big shout out going out to Kenya Students in Diaspora Foundation. I see Professor Gerono Phyllis retweeting our feeds. Matenzawa tuned in. Collins Mukamba, thank you so much for being with us this far. Imbogo ya Varuya, I hope I said that right. Thank you so much for checking in. Keep talking to us. Let us know where you're watching us from. So we want to continue with the day's conversation. Before we get to that business discussion that Regina had promised you, let's first talk a bit about writing. And to help us with this conversation this morning in studio, we have with us Amal Mohammed Abdikadir, who is a young author. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
Karibu sana. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Are you on social media?
Yes.
How can guys find you?
Okay, my Instagram is Amal Abdikadir 2176. My Facebook, Amal Mohammed Abdi. And my Twitter, Amal Abdikadir 65.
All right, so you can check her out. You can talk to her on the socials. But let's just get to understand your writing journey. You are pretty young, but how far back does your writing journey go? Ulianza mwaka gani?
I started in the year 2014 when I was in class 7. And I have published my first book after 7 years after writing it.
Yeah.
That's 2021.
You wrote it
when I was in class 7.
No, may published 2021.
Yes.
How has that journey been? You know, discovering that you wanted to write at a very young age. I mean, who else is in class 7 and is thinking of writing or publishing a book? I mean, that time our priorities are elsewhere. What was that space like for you and ending up in you actually wanting to write?
Okay, it has not been easy, of course. I have had difficult time editing the book, printing it, and eventually launching it, but I didn't know that one day it will give me a platform where I can showcase my talent and capabilities. But it hasn't been easy because, you know, along the way, whatever you are doing, there is criticism and there is doubt, a lot of things. Of course, and one of my major challenges was lack of knowledge. I didn't, in fact, when I wrote the book, I wasn't planning to publish it because I didn't know there was something called publishing. I thought the way the books look like, those are people that write. That was your perception about writing so then? I wanted so much to improve on my handwriting so that I write like those people. I didn't know about publishing. That was the major challenge for me. And then somewhere in Form 1, that's when I discovered there's something called publishing. A friend of mine told me, and that's when I started looking for a publisher. But finding a publisher based in Nakuru, I'm from Nakuru, it is not an easy.
It was really hard.
Yeah. So I had to, when I finished school, that's 2019, so 2020, when I came to Nairobi and being exposed to this environment, that's when I met a publisher. Yeah. Now,
let's just go back to that space when you're also just trying to learn yourself, learning this craft of writing. How was the support system around you? Because being pretty young and you are going this direction with writing, is not so many people, it's not a situation so many young people get to go through. So in terms of the support that you were getting in that space and time, how was it? Okay, I can't say everyone supported me, but there's quite a number of people that supported me, especially my family. You know, family comes first. They supported me, my brothers. They are busy men, but they created time for me to talk to me about my books. They sponsored the publication of my book from printing, editing, to launching it. So they are called Abdi Fatah and Abdi Razak, and I'm very grateful to them. And they are friends around me, my classmates, they were supporting me, and not all of them, but someone like, I can mention her, she's called Mary Wanjiku. She supported me a lot. And
there are people like the late Professor Henry Olekulet. He was the first editor of my book, and unfortunately he couldn't make to my launching event. And then there is the head of the library in Nakuru County, Madam Purity Kavuri. There is Miss Kihaji, the writer of Reset, and Brother Dean, the writer of the book and Unchained Heart. So those are the people that supported me a lot, apart from my family.
Okay, now just looking at your journey, what would you say has been the most fulfilling part about this writing that you have been doing from such a young age and you are still doing at this point in time?
I think there is certain happiness, you know, when you do something, especially when you work on something, you know, I've told you it has taken me a lot of time. And people, at first, I didn't like the way the journey was, like all those years looking for a publisher. But when you want to do something, quick is the fastest way. But when you want to do something amazing, slowly is the fastest way. So that's why maybe I had taken all that time. But finally, I launched my book. And that's really something to celebrate
and be proud of.
Yeah.
You know, and we actually have her book with us in studio. She'll be telling us a bit about it. But before we get to Deception, you've written a number of other books, and I'd like for you to tell us a bit about the three of them. I understand there are four, but you are comfortable talking about three of them. And which Deception was the first book that you wrote?
Yeah.
All right, we'll be finishing up with Deception because it's in line with the conversation that is going on here in our country. But tell us a bit about Shades of Hope. What's the story with that?
Shades of Hope is basically a story that talks about, you know, how your life can be when you are displaced due to inter-community conflict. So it talks about a Somali girl who is displaced and lost her parents, the whole family, due to inter-community conflicts. And she has to travel all the way from like Garissa to Nairobi on foot to come and explore the city, being a street child, and ends up with a good life due to hard work.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the other book is Born to Suffer.
Born to Suffer talks about those kind of parents that they give birth to children. They don't abort, they give birth to children, and then they bring it to your doorstep, and you decide what to do with the baby.
What was the motive behind this particular one, Born to Suffer? What was the message you were looking to send across?
I think there is a day someone told me about a lady who had twins, and she aborted the last minute, but they were still alive. And she had to pour very hot water on them. They were crying so that they can die. She didn't want them to survive. And so when I was told that story, I was in Form 1. So I thought of writing something about it. So I think the stories are close.
Born to Suffer. All right. And now here we have Deception, which is one of the first books that you ever wrote, but you have managed to publish it this year. Deception in itself, when we hear the word deception, already we have our own opinions. But is the story in line with the title itself, or there's a plot twist therein? You know, this takes me back to high school literature.
You know, most of the times the writers, it's said that the title of the book, it's only the writer that can explain.
Yeah.
But for me, when you see the word deception, then you should know the book is about deceit. Yeah, the title and the book are very related.
Okay, so for someone who might not, or rather wants a trailer of what this book is about, in brief, just give us a condensed version of what this book captures with the element of deceit.
And the book is about, let's say, it's about deceit, betrayal, lies, and inappropriate sexual desires. The book, I've narrowed it down to sexual harassment in schools by teachers. So I've written, it's a fiction story. I've written it to educate our generation and the next generation, and to especially the ladies, to inspire them to shy away from drug abuse within or outside the school, to shy away from inappropriate sexual desires, and I hope they learn from it.
You do hope you learn from it, and the fact that you highlighted the issue to do with sexual offenses, especially in the school setup. Now, just looking at that, and somebody might go through this book and question whether our teachers are alive to such concerns, and especially from a young person, when it comes to taking this information to the actual schools and giving an actual reality of what is happening. Is it something that you would like to do as you go out, you know, just driving this book, using it to teach even children in schools and even the teachers? Is it something you're open to?
Yes. I won't shy away from talking about the book. I was in some schools in Isli last week, talking to the girls about the sexual control, and I narrowed it down to this book. I talked to them, and most of them purchased it, and I'm getting good feedback from them. And you know, the fact that I've said sexual harassment in schools by teachers, I don't mean that every pregnant 13-year-old girl is being impregnated by their teachers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something that happens all over, by teachers, by any men. Yeah, so
it's meant to be a tool to drive a conversation that...
Yeah, just to create awareness.
Yeah. Because, you know, looking at what COVID-19 did teach us, that, you know, sometimes the perpetrators are right next to us. Sometimes the person who is hurting these young girls is somebody who is next to them, somebody who's supposed to protect them. And looking at the school setup, the teacher would be both the protector and perpetrator in some situations. So I do believe it's a very valid conversation that needs to continue thriving. Now, we're also living in a Kenyan space where the reading culture is not as good as one would want it to be. So in terms of encouraging the reading culture here in our country, as a young author, what do you think the solution would be to even just encourage people to be, because such information about even for kids to protect themselves is in a book, but looking at the reading culture, that's a problem in itself.
Okay, the solution, according to me,
what
the
you
solution
think,
will be challenge. I'm sure today I've challenged you, right, about writing and everything. So when I challenge you, you also might desire to write a book, but you know, you must read several books for you to write one book.
Yes.
So I think the way young authors are coming up, too much of them, and the way they are challenging the elder people, I think the elders should go back to, first of all, reading before going to writing. Yeah.
It needs to start from way back then to just try and build this reading culture. And I think we all have a long way to go, because I am part of that population that struggles to read a book that is over 200 pages, you know. But again, we have the option of audiobooks. It's a start for those of us who are struggling. But let me come to now the publishing part. You had mentioned that, you know, it hasn't been an easy journey. And let's just start by understanding from your journey. You know, when you talk about publishing, we usually just see the credits there, published by Reset Company. But we don't really understand what it takes for a writer to actually get their book published. Kindly take us through that whole journey from once you are done with scripting and putting it together. How do you get to that publishing point?
Okay, once you are done, for me, I wrote it in a book, you see, when I was in class 7. So there is typing, you need to put it in a soft copy, and then there is editing. So editing is I don't want to say the hardest part of it, but it is. Editing takes a lot of work. You need, you have to edit 7 times.
Yes. And
then go to printing. So if you have a publisher, you can, before printing and everything, you have to design the cover and decide on the synopsis at the back. Then if you have a publisher, you are good to go. If you don't have a publisher, then you start a journey of trying to find one.
All right. And we'll be coming back to look at a few other issues that I find so many publishers and writers get to face when they're in that part of, you know, trying to publish their book in a bit. But we'll be getting to this in a bit, so do stay with us. We will be right back.